once again throws light on the significant challenges in South Africa on social cohesion and integration. Well, early on this month, foreign-owned shops were looted by locals in Mamelodi and Attridgeville in Pretoria West. They accuse foreign nationals of stealing their jobs and drug trafficking. Well, failure to successfully integrate immigrants into society can lead to tension and conflict that we saw in the past few weeks, and that have a direct impact on stability at local community and national level. Well, to discuss how locals and society groups can work with government to promote orderly migration and integration is Mr Mametlwe Sebei from the Environmental Rights Program at Lawyers for Human Rights. Good afternoon, Mr Sebei, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us on the News Today desk.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our listeners.
The need for foreign nationals to be integrated into South African society and into the fabric of our communities has taken on heightened significance. What are some of the key elements for successful integration to happen, Mr Sebei?
Firstly, let's acknowledge the fact that locals and immigrants have been living together and peacefully in harmony for many ages. And the question we must be asking ourselves is, why now? Why are we having these problems? But the issue, of integration also speaks to the manner in which government makes it possible, firstly, for immigrants to enter the country, be documented properly, and be able to make an honest living. And the policies of this government have been making that impossible, and these are some of the factors behind an outcry of crime and all these other sorts of problems that are alienating big part of immigrant community from our locals.
All right, Mr. Sebei, let's take a step back. All this is becoming very reminiscent of the horrible violence we saw in 2008. Back then, we had a three-pronged strategy. We were going to prevent such violence from happening in the future, provide the humanitarian aid, and then successfully reintegrate those displaced. Of course, this strategy isn't working out as well as we would have hoped. And of course, it was a strategy based on an agreement and understanding with the communities concerned. Why hasn't it worked out in the long term? What are some of the reasons behind that? The
fragmentation of our communities along all these fault lines speak to the deepening crisis in the economy that socially translate into mass unemployment, poverty, but also intolerable levels of crime, which for some, particularly in the absence of mass organizations that can channel the frustrations and the struggles of communities against right people who have to be held accountable, translate into scapegoating, blaming the foreign immigrants and other vulnerable members of our community for a deep-seated problems that our communities are generally faced with. And crime, unemployment and poverty are some of those issues.
All right, so such incidents are not unique to South Africa. It's a global phenomenon, nor are we the only country grappling with such a problem. But we want to understand, how do we ensure that government policies and programs that we have in place do not lead to such a situation that you've just mentioned, where locals themselves start to feel at a disadvantage and they're not cognizant of the fact that these programs are designed for the benefit of all?
The fact of the matter is that the rising anti-immigrant, right-wing populism that is a world phenomenon is corresponding to a deepening economic crisis, which is not unique to South Africa. The problem that we see in America with the election of a right-wing president in the form of Trump, the rise of right-wing populism in Europe, all of it is a result of a prolonged and a deep economic crisis that has devastated many communities, resulted in millions upon millions of people driven into unemployment and poverty. And we are saying this is a system, the neoliberal capitalist policies of the past 30 years and the response, the attempts of the elite to offload the burden of this economic crisis on the poor is a result of this crisis. And 9 years into the crisis, none of the governments in the world have a solution. There's no solution inside, but a horrific conditions for the masses of our people. And this is a problem that is fueling xenophobia.
Can you suggest some of that solutions for us? What would you like them to look like?
Well, I would give you my personal opinion. As a Workers' and Socialist Party which initiated a coalition, we have long said that the only way to resolve the problems in this country is to nationalize all the commanding heights of the economy, the mines, the banks, the factories, and take this under a democratic control and management of the working class and community, so that we can plan the economy and use the wealth that is there in our economy to meet the demands of our people, to create houses for everybody, to abolish unemployment, and make sure that we alleviate the poverty and end the causes of crimes, and therefore the fragmentation and scapegoating that we see at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Sebei, for your time on the SABC News Desk. We do appreciate you sharing your insights with us. Time to take a short break, but before that, your weather details.
Thank you very much.
Or rather, before we have those weather details for you, let's move on to some international details. Brazil.